As some of you will be aware, in the spring I planted a crop of chickpeas, and it's the first time I've ever grown chickpeas. They grew quite well across the year, but now I've harvested them and I've been drying them, and it's at the end where I need to actually separate the actual chickpeas that are in these pods from all the pods and all the chaff. Now, the chickpeas are here, but they are at the rate of about 1 to 2 peas per pod. There's a lot of prickly stuff here. They've dried out quite well. I think the simplest way is going to be to try and manually separate, shaking, stripping off all the pods off these stalks, and then to process the pods by actually just breaking them and bashing them before I winnow it. So it's a little bit of a task here, and it's going to take a few minutes to just strip it all off and even shake it off. Because they are dry now, you can really hear it rattle, and they do come off quite easily. Look, if I was doing this all the time, I would be making some sort of equipment to do it, some type of machinery. There doesn't seem to be a lot of small scale machinery for processing legumes or grains that has been produced in our part of the world. I know in Asian countries where there's a lot of smaller scale production that there is that type of machinery available, but you just don't see it here in Tasmania especially, but Australia generally either. So it'll be down to inventing your own. But one thing that really surprises me, when I saw them growing, it seemed like quite a lot. But now I bring it down to this, it doesn't seem like very much at all. And how many chickpeas will come out of this will be quite interesting to see. Break the peas out of the pod. I'm going to put them in a bag, that way they'll stay together. Lose less. And also I can use the bag to actually bash it, to break them up. I can actually stomp them a bit, but I've got a problem here. I've got a hole in this bag, I might get another one. Having changed to a bag that hasn't got a hole in, I can really get stuck into breaking them up. Jump up and down. Going.
Ready, steady. Yeah.
The thing that you're able to see straight away is the chickpeas amongst this chaff. So most of the chickpeas have exposed themselves and come out of their pods. A little bit of this stuff that you can get off the top this way. If you had the right size mesh that you could actually filter it through, it would be useful to reduce it, but I don't think I've got anything that size. I'll have a look. I found this mesh which looks like it might be about the right size. I think chickpeas will drop through it, so I'm going to see what I can filter out with it. I like the sound of that.
And now we got them out of the pods, and trying to get dust the pods the little these in.
There's one or two that haven't broken.
Some haven't worked. Oh, I can feel them.
That's taken out some of the really coarse material, but there's still lots there. I think I'm going to proceed to the next step, which is try and winnow it. Now, winnowing, as the name suggests, normally is done with some wind, but I haven't got any wind today, so I'm going to have to manufacture some.
Now that we got the pods out, we're getting the fan out, and then we're going to do some stuff with it.
So with a consistent wind, I'm simply going to test it to find out where the drop zone is and how effective it is. But
It's
not blowing enough away, just not strong enough.
Look, the bumblebee, Dad.
Better.
Leave it alone, bumblebee.
I really need a stronger fan. This is separating some, but not enough. Lacking a stronger fan, I've used a couple of cardboard cartons in a funnel shape, and this increases the airspeed, and this is working much better. So let's look at the results of this lot. This is far more effective. It will need to be repeated, but there's a few of these stalks still, and most of the light stuff has landed up this end, so some of that can just be thrown out quite simply. And we're seeing lots and lots of chickpeas now that are free of chaff, so that's a great thing. So I won't throw too much of this because there are some chickpeas in there, but a little bit of the top stuff can come off. This is what's blowing down, and it's all your nice light shells, so I'm not seeing any chickpeas coming down on that, so that's good. After running it through several times, this is the final result. Reasonably clean peas. Look, the quality is somewhat mixed, I suppose, because they weren't of total even maturity. Some were more mature than others. Could have been harvested earlier, some were still younger, so there's quite a lot of variation here. Now, in terms of quantity here, there is just over 1.8 kilos or 4 pounds, and that's certainly a lot more than I planted. Unfortunately, I don't have a weight for the amount that I planted, but I think that I've probably got at least 4 to 5 times what I put into the ground. Now, realistically, you would like a higher production than that. So, what are the lessons? Number one, yes, it is certainly possible to grow them here in Tasmania. They were quite easy to plant and easy in terms of maintenance. Now, we must remember that the soil that I was growing them in, look, it was the first time that a food crop as such has been grown in that soil, so the actual production is going to be lower than you would get after a few years of soil development. Soil doesn't instantly produce well, it takes a little bit of work. So I think I could actually increase the amount that I got off that area, and I could probably sow it a little bit thicker. I think that I could run the rows a bit closer and actually get more off the same area. In terms of processing at the end, look, if you were growing these regularly, you definitely want to create some equipment, something to thresh and winnow. it wouldn't be hard to create some simple equipment to do it, but once you actually invested that time to create some equipment once, you'd be able to process a crop like this year after year. And I think in terms of growing a legume crops, you know, for home use, which I recommend and I think is a really good idea, it's something that I probably will invest some time in building down the track, maybe for next season, because each year I do want to produce something like this and produce a lot more than this in terms of legumes. So having that equipment would be really good. But for now, it's time to go and soak some of this and then we can cook it up and see how it eats. But the rest of the chickpeas I'll spread on a tray and allow them to dry for a couple of weeks to ensure that they are all thoroughly dry before putting them in a container.